So now we're going to go over to talk to Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch to hear the latest about Obamagate and the FBI lovebirds. Let's go over to Tom now.
Okay.
We're joined now by Tom Fitton, who is the president of Judicial Watch, a internationally recognised expert on government corruption. And in fact, if you want to know what Ann and I will be working on 6 months from now, look at what Tom Fitton and Judicial Watch are working on.
That's right.
It's sort of a stalky relationship, actually.
Are working on today. We get up every day and check what Judicial Watch are doing and saying, we could do something on that.
We should do something about that.
In 6 months' time.
Yes.
So
we should make a drama of whatever it is that Tom is doing.
Yes. So, for example, before the last election, Tom and Judicial Watch were relentless in exposing the Hillary Clinton email scandal. They managed to force her top echelons to give depositions under oath. The judge refused to release
the videos
to release, but he did allow the transcripts. We immediately started reenacting the transcripts using Hollywood actors here. Last time I looked, there was over 2 million people had viewed those tapes on social media and on YouTube.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing.
Thank you for the script.
Thank you for the script, yeah, for your work of your lawyers. And, similarly, Tom and Judicial Watch have been among the main movers in exposing the Russia collusion hoax, the scandal that's now becoming Obamagate. And, of course, we based our play FBI Lovebirds on verbatim on the documents that are emerging. So partly because of documents acquired by Judicial Watch. So we have a lot to talk about. So we'd like to welcome Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch.
Thanks for being here, Tom.
Thank you for having me. Good to be with you both, and finally.
So most people listening to this will probably know what Judicial Watch is. Can you give us a little summary of what it is and what you do and why it's important?
Well, we're actually a nonprofit educational foundation. So our work is really about educating Americans about what their government's up to. We do that by using the Freedom of Information Act, which is a federal law, and then there's state versions of the law to get documents that we've all been talking about. But when the government commits misconduct or steps outside the law, we also sue directly to enforce the rule of law as well. So we're a watchdog. There's nothing like Judicial Watch in the country in terms of the breadth, depth, and seriousness of our work. And by saying there's nothing like us in the country, I mean there's nothing like us in the world. And this is a great country. Nowhere else in the world would there be a Judicial Watch allowed to operate the way we are.
We agree.
I agree, and you often find that the strongest organizations in this country are ones that do something nobody else does. You're really there doing a unique service. So
public service.
You've been one of the leading voices in exposing the corruption in the DOJ and the FBI, the malfeasance. There's so much information coming out about the FBI and how the Obama administration and the FBI illegally spied on the Trump campaign and the presidency. There's a lot of information coming out, and it's coming out all the time. Can you just sum up for our viewers and our listeners what was so outrageous? Why should people who haven't been following the story very closely, why should they care? Isn't this just normal politics or normal law enforcement? So tell us why we should care, and where do you think the Obamagate scandal will go next?
Well, there's been nothing like it in American history in the sense that we didn't have the technology available to spy on citizens the way we now have. And the Obama administration just decided to deploy that technology and the massive government infrastructure at the federal level involved intelligence gathering and law enforcement to target his political enemies. And I would take a step back. Everyone says it's about Trump. Well, Trump wasn't the first victim here. Who was the first victim? The Tea Party movement in 2012, where the IRS and the Justice Department and the FBI were tasked to try to put people in jail who were seen as opponents of President Obama. It helped him in many ways steal an election in plain sight. He suppressed an entire political movement through that IRS abuse. And we found out subsequently the FBI was involved as well. They were trying to figure out ways to put people in jail who were the targets of the IRS abuse as well. So come back around 2016. Well, how is it they try to protect their election prospects again? Well, they had Hillary Clinton, who had a major criminal liability because of her mishandling classified information and her stealing and deleting emails. They were forced to at least do a pretend investigation, but concurrently they were working with her to try to destroy Donald Trump. And you had them manufacture, I don't even necessarily think it was Russia disinfo. I think it was Western intel disinfo, FBI disinfo, Sidney Blumenthal disinfo, Hillary Clinton disinfo, to try to smear President Trump or then candidate Trump. And they were spying on him. They were using the FBI to spy on the president's political campaign. Incredible.
It's amazing. I mean, people need to just sum it up like that. And the Steele Dossier, if anyone wants to read the Steele Dossier, it's like a child wrote it. It's half-truths, it's hearsay, it's based on nothing, it's ludicrous. It was instantly checkable and instantly debunkable. He got lots of things wrong. It wasn't even a good smear. But it gave the FBI the cover, and then they had this alleged conversation in a bar in London with George Papadopoulos, who said, "Oh, the Russians, we're working with the Russians." And then they used that as and Carter Page, he once traveled to Russia and met a few Russians. They used this to spy, as you say, to spy on a campaign.
Well, remember, all of that was after the fact, though, Phil. They came up with the scenario, well, we're going to target Trump. Well, who do we target to get at him? Carter Page, General Flynn, all of that, there was no basis to target any of them. We just obtained the document they used to justify the opening, allegedly, because we think it opened earlier, of the spy operation against Trump, written by none other than Peter Strzok.
Exactly.
And it turns out that Lisa Page was helping him write it as well. We know from the text messages. There he talks about they get some information that the Russians, Lord forbid, are trying to communicate, figure out who to talk to is important in the Trump campaign, to figure out what's going to happen if they win.
I saw that. I read that. I read that.
Oh my! Stop the presses. A foreign government's trying to figure out how to work with an incoming administration potentially.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's worth re-emphasizing that in the document that was used to set up the investigation into the Trump campaign, they said one of the areas of concern was that the Russian government, a foreign government, was looking to see who they could talk to find out what the incoming administration might do regarding them. It would be criminal if the Russians didn't do that. It would be criminal if the British didn't do that. I mean, this is what happens when a new government comes into the States. Everyone's going, do you know, and all the embassies in Washington, they're all going, I once had dinner with that guy and now he's the third undersecretary. I should meet him for a coffee. This is what people do.
It's normal.
It's normal.
Practice.
But they decided to pretend it's abnormal to launch an investigation. Is that right?
It was an absurd analysis. It was perfectly in line with Peter Strzok's approach on things and the Obama White House's approach on things. Absurd. It was third-hand gossip, and there was no basis. Let's say it was all true. It still wasn't sufficient to launch a spy operation, unprecedented, on the president's campaign. And people should understand, going back to that campaign, Obama was heavily invested in picking his successor, like no incumbent president had been for 100 years in this country. Most incumbent presidents in recent history have stayed out of the political campaign.
Yes.
Not Obama. So he wanted Hillary Clinton to win. He obviously was guiding the Justice Department investigation. He didn't think there was any there. He said as much. Sure enough, Justice Department found that. And we now know, based on the text messages and the recent revelations, he was hip deep on the targeting of Trump.
Where does this go now? Where does Obamagate go?
It doesn't go where I think many Americans want it to go, which is to significant prosecutions of senior level Obama administration officials. Attorney General Barr, beyond signaling or being quite explicit that there's no information that there's suggesting there will be a criminal investigation of Biden or Obama. Now, I disagree with that, but he went further. He said just because something looks terrible and is, corrupt, widely abusive, it doesn't mean it's illegal. So that's a signal.
Yes, it certainly sounds like, yeah.
Don't expect much. Now, Peter Strzok, maybe he faces liability. Maybe that FBI agent, Mr. Kleinsmith, who altered the Carter Page CIA document allegedly to change him from a patriot into a traitor. Yeah. Really disgusting to try to get the FISA warrant approved, successfully so. Maybe he gets indicted. But what I see coming out of this is a glorified IG report with not much in the way of serious prosecutions. Brennan hasn't even been questioned yet. Inexcusable, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just to tell people about the Carter Page. So Carter Page was meeting Russians, but he was working for the CIA, right, and reporting back on his meetings to the Russians. The FBI told the FISA judge he's meeting Russians, but forgot to tell he was risking his life and liberty to work for the CIA. They didn't tell the judge that. They just said he's meeting these dodgy Russians.
Well, in fact, they altered the document saying he was working for the CIA.
Oh,
that's amazing.
It's extraordinary.
Amazing.
We're gonna move on to another topic. So obviously we've got a bit of a coronavirus going on here, and I know that recently you've been working with the Daily Caller to get access to the WHO's conversations with Anthony Fauci, Dr. Anthony Fauci. So how did that come about, and what do you expect to find, and why is it important?
Well, we've worked with our friends, the Daily Caller News Foundation, many times. We represent reporters regularly trying to get information. So there are reporters out there who want the truth, and FOIA is a key way to do that. And they were seeking a FOIA on what was Fauci and his top deputy talking about coronavirus early on. What were they communicating with WHO about in China on that topic with WHO, and specifically as it relates to China. So we want to know what they were talking about, what they were learning from WHO about the coronavirus in China, and other documents that may pop up on those topics. And so it's pretty simple. What's not simple is just getting the answers. So we've had to sue in court. Fauci has suggested, I don't think he suggested, he said he was misled by the Chinese. And was he misled via the WHO? How did that happen? He recognized that, when he looks back at what decision-making he was doing early on, he didn't recognize how transmittable it was, how communicable it was. And it's pretty clear that was based on false information from the Chinese, and we're trying to ferret that out.
Good luck with that.
A very important task, though.
Very important.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you were one of the first conservatives to speak out against the lockdown, even in April. I think as early as April, you were one of the first people to speak out against the lockdown. Why did you speak that? What was it that made you take that position at that stage, that early stage?
I was very concerned about the coronavirus early on. So if you look back, I was nervous about it, and I wanted the travel bans, and I thought we needed to take it very seriously because I didn't think China was locking down what they were doing because it was, quote, just like the flu. I thought it was a serious issue that needed to be addressed. But then you have this panicked overreaction by states. And remember, you have to go back and you look at the CDC initial guidance on this, and I think it's still pending, or at least it was until the absurd phase plan that they came up with that makes no sense. But the CDC guidance for months was there was never any guidance to do statewide shutdowns. If it became a contagion within the community, even then they didn't recommend statewide shutdowns. It was a case by case. If there's a school that's at issue, close the school down. Nothing about closing down entire school systems. Nothing about closing down entire states. And this was just panic decision making by the governors. Ratified, frankly, by the federal bureaucracy, medical establishment, but it wasn't based on science. Nothing like this had ever been done in American history, in world history, and now we know that maybe it wasn't effective. It wasn't as impactful as people had thought, and let's just say that the initial shutdowns, look, we didn't know what was happening. You give people a pass, right? But continued shutdowns that are indiscriminate, that have really no science behind them. Yeah. Now this is just a power play.
Yes.
And we're on the wrong end of the stick.
Yeah.
Oh, and talking of the wrong end of the stick, we're talking to you unfortunately, from California. Where you talk about being in the wrong end of the stick. We're on the wrong end of the stick in more ways than one. Yeah. But actually, again, Judicial Watch have taken a lead and done something really wonderful here. And we want to thank you from California for your TRO, where you've taken out this TRO against California, a temporary restraining order, to stop them from making these payments, cash payments, to illegal immigrants. Every day we're all waking up to these awful stories of real lives who are destroyed, imperiled, impoverished, and brought into extremely dangerous situations based on this lockdown, not based on the virus, based on the actual lockdown itself. And now, instead of deploying any resources that are available to actual people who live here legally or paying taxes or trying to get by, they're going to make these huge cash payments to illegal immigrants. Tell us about the background to that. But thank you, by the way, for doing that. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, we haven't succeeded yet in shutting the money off, but at least we're in court fighting for it. Ironically, the legislature, in theory, can pass a law providing cash payments to illegal aliens in these circumstances. But of course, the law doesn't matter to Governor Newsom, evidently, who just on his own just designated the money to shovel it out. And so we're trying to say, look, if you're going to do this, you have to follow the law, and the legislature has to be accountable for doing it. And you just can't have an executive make this decision on his own. I mean, you see this with his mail-in ballot scheme, where on his own, he's just ordering all these counties to start doing mail-in voting without any authorization from the legislature. The rule of law can't be a casualty to the coronavirus. We don't have a coronavirus crisis in this country anymore. We have a constitutional crisis. We have an economic crisis. We got to get our society back open again, because into this realm we're in now, where we're all shut down. What is rushed in? Power-hungry leftists who are using it to impose policy they would never be able to oppose in non-emergency circumstances.
And you're right. It's the capriciousness of it too. I mean, it went from this lockdown, as you say. Many of us thought, okay, let's. This is an emergency. Let's go with this. But as you say, it's now emerged into a power grab, and most of what they're suggesting now has no basis on science. I mean, we can go on the beach now. You have to wear a mask on the beach. You couldn't go on the beach. They were putting people on roads beside the beach, which are narrow, as opposed to the beach, which was wide.
Yeah, they were forcing people to walk on pavements. What do you call those in America?
Sidewalks.
Where you were squashed into the sidewalk, where you got this 25, here where we are in LA County, 25 miles of beach available. And for a very long period, we weren't allowed on the beach at all. Now, actually, they've even got the more ludicrous law now, where you have to be on the beach, but only active. You can't be on the beach inactive. You can't sit on the beach. You can't sunbathe.
But also the beginning, the lockdown was flatten the curve to stop the
King activity. I don't know. Is that?
I'm certainly working on that one. That's my act of defiance. Yeah. Out of my cold dead hand, you'll take this glass of beautifully chilled rosé. Yes. I had to go there, Phil. I'm sorry.
Yes. It's true. Well, we also made sandcastles.
We sandcastles.
We took our godson as cover and made sandcastles.
With a 2-year-old.
This is activity.
And actually, by the way, I have to tell you that a lady came along in her big Jeep, from the Parks and Recreation, and she came up to me. I thought, I can't believe this is happening. And she said to me, you are not allowed to be here not being active on the beach. And I immediately said, take me away. You got to arrest me then for this terrible activity. And she said, no, I'm not going to arrest you, but I'm telling you. And I said, well, I've heard you. And so anyway, but we were active making sandcastles. Yes. But actually, by the way, just to add to the madness of this, you're allowed to be active on the beach, but you're not allowed to park your car at the beach. So as you say, this has given a moment for these power-hungry types.
But it's also
for madness.
It's gone from locking down to flatten the curve, which a lot of people agreed with. You didn't want to now everywhere is New York. Like, I was looking, Oregon has 144 deaths.
Montana has 10. Montana, Wyoming.
But they're under the same lockdown as New York.
So look, you're educated people. You can look at the information, but you don't presume to run a country of 330 million people. Yeah. But some people in Washington are more than happy to do that. Governors are willing to do that for their own states. And to go back to Obamagate, we got Susan Rice being designated as head of Reopen DC here in the District of Columbia, our nation's capital. Of course, we're still shut down. Mm-hmm. So you've got the corrupt Obama official getting a leg in on the coronavirus shutdown politics and policies. And so, of course, DC is still closed. And look, and I want to go back to the rule of law here. And this is something I think your listeners should try to understand, because I kind of try to figure this out. To the degree the law allows emergency shutdowns or quarantines, it's got to be limited and specific in nature.
Yes.
So if you as a family, there's a medical issue that's contagious, maybe the government has the ability to keep you in your home for a week. But there's no law, either common law or constitutional law, that allows you to be deprived of all your liberties for months at a time. And I'm not talking First Amendment. I'm talking about your right to property. You have a right to your job, your businesses. They talk about liabilities for businesses. What about the liabilities for states? I think the states are facing potentially significant liability over their takings of property through this emergency declarations that have no basis that destroy businesses. This is, and what's disappointing once again is that the Justice Department is AWOL on most of this. Yeah, they filed briefs and issued a few warnings on religious freedom issues, where the law is pretty good on, but on our core liberties, AWOL.
Yeah, it's awful. It's really terrible.
Well, talking of core liberties, there's an election coming up in November, and you've been very active in voter fraud litigation. What can we see? What can we
see on the horizon?
With absentee ballots, etc. What should we watch out for, and what are you watching out for?
What can we do?
Well, they wanted to blow up they've blown up the economy. Coronavirus has. It's destroyed our freedoms. Now they want to destroy free and fair elections. Now, the left has always wanted to do this. It was part of their initial plan. When they came into Congress, their number one bill was what you're hearing proposed now. National mail-in ballots, programs, national ballot harvesting, overturning voter ID everywhere. And they're trying to do that nationally, obviously, and they'll probably have a tough time in the Congress, given the way it's made up. And obviously, President Trump, we know his views on it. So it's a state-by-state battle. So one thing we're concerned about, if you're doing mass mailings of voter ballots or absentee ballot applications, whatever have you, you got to make sure the lists are clean. And we've done analysis after analysis, most recently in 2019, 2.5 million extra names in the rolls. At least. In California, we had sued to get California to try to clean up its rolls, and specifically Los Angeles County. And Los Angeles County settled with us, which is good for Los Angeles County. And they've begun a process to remove up to, in that county alone, 1.6 million names. And we just sued in North Carolina and Pennsylvania. There are 2 million names between those two states, it looks like, that need to be cleaned up. So when you hear about all these mail ballots, you have to wonder, and you should be concerned, that they'll be going to people who aren't there anymore. And of course, if you want to even vote by mail, it's not a terribly secure way to vote. The most secure way to vote is to go in person, day of the election and vote, or to a polling place and vote in person.
Yeah.
Relying on the Postal Service to either get you your ballot and get it back, knock on wood.
Good luck.
Yeah, well, if you can go to Costco, by the way, with everybody else, you can go and vote. I mean, the basis for this total change in the way people vote is there is no basis for that,
Well, there is. They're setting up the steal. I mean, that's what they're doing. They oppose voter ID. They oppose cleaning up the rolls. I mean, we filed these lawsuits in North Carolina and Pennsylvania. I mean, the process, in theory, would take 4 years at least to remove a name from the rolls for many cases. Yeah. Left doesn't want that. They're jumping in to try to stop that. They hate what we did in California. They hate voter ID. The idea of confirming citizenship as you register to vote, that's not even done anywhere, practically speaking. And then you've got the ballot harvesting in California, which is just a recipe for intimidation and fraud. They're setting up the steal for 2020 and beyond.
And we just want to tell people we're from Ireland,
we taught you how to do this stuff.
We practically invented vote stealing, in Ireland as part of the British election. There's a whole culture of stealing votes and impersonating.
We invented this.
And ballot harvesting, and as even a phrase in the graveyard, everybody
votes the same.
So
we have a song where there's a line in that. Everybody in the graveyard votes the same.
And if you notice, most of the centres of ballot stealing are Irish American centres, interestingly enough.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. This is a bit of cultural exchange we brought to you. But people should know,
Another burden of my Irish heritage, I guess, huh?
Yes. People should know it's not as difficult to steal votes as you'd think.
Unfortunately.
Especially if you're Irish like we are.
Yeah.
And people should be very aware of it.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. So, well, thanks very much, Tom. I think we've run out of time here.
Yes, but can you just tell us what's the name of the dog? Because we were interrupted earlier by the dog. What's the dog's name?
As an Irishman, you'll love it. Bridie.
Oh,
Right, yeah.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Our audience, our Golden Shepherd. What is it?
Right, a German Shepherd.
A German Shepherd. Our audience particularly likes pets because we've got two cats that normally walk across our arrangement here. So we've got them.
I think
down
you just
today.
invented a new type of dog, the Golden Shepherd.
The Golden Shepherd. He probably is a Golden Shepherd. Exactly. So I was thinking, oh, that's an interesting one. All right, listen, we are really, really grateful for your time. I know you're very, very busy, but you're a hero, and we really appreciate all the work that you guys do. And again, keep in touch because we're always watching what you guys are doing because we want to make a drama of it.
Yeah.
We're waiting to depose Hillary Clinton, so we have a hearing on June 2nd on it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. That's right. The judge has just said you can depose her, and then it went to the appeal. But she managed. Just to give people the backup, she was the one who got away, but she's not got away yet. So let's see what she has to say.
Yeah. Well, we'll be hanging on. We'll be hanging on for that. All right. Thanks so much, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Welcome.